Anaconda is a show that would really benefit from a reboot. Think about it. It would be guaranteed an audience because so many people know it, so many people grew up with it, and so many people remember it. But it's so widely criticized that changes would be welcome. So I personally want to be the one responsible for that. So I mentioned this in my Mr. Enter review, but this is a video dedicated to what I would do if I were in charge rebooting Anaconda. So I don't exactly have visuals. I am working on that with someone, but it's just for fun. I don't own the rights to this. But I'm going to go through a bunch of different elements of a show and talk about a little bit of what the original was like and the changes I would make. So with that being said, let's start. The best way I can describe an emotional truth is this, and I completely stole it from a blogger named Mike Russo. An emotional truth is a core emotional experience, one that can transcend the time and place a story is written, in order to help the audience maintain the truth of a character, their journey, and the story as a whole. It can be summed up by the line, "Fiction's a lie that tells the truth." Now, I got to talk to Joanna Ferrone, the co-creator of Anaconda that I never give enough credit to in these videos, and she had this to say about the original. 1, life's not fair. 2, father knows best is unrealistic. And 3, the uncool kids are actually the cool kids. I really like that. I think we've moved past a little bit the father knows best era, which in the 50s, a lot of sitcoms were very perfect, very saccharine, and pretty unrealistic to some of the dysfunction and craziness of the real world. Here's what I would do in a reboot. Now, I'd keep Life's Not Fair, that's for sure. But I'd actually going off the father knows best is unrealistic idea, I think I'd specify it to this. Real people aren't positive all the time, and it's okay to feel unpleasant emotions. I'd probably go the inside out route, but with anger as opposed to sadness. And the emotional truth, my final one is, anger is a healthy emotion, provided you know how to manage it. That's the thing that always drew me into the show. I liked the angst and the anger of the main character. And everybody remembers the revenge fantasies. So I thought it'd be really, really interesting to go into a little more what's behind that. Especially since it doesn't seem to be clear to a lot of people how this person thinks, and I would need to clarify that significantly. And now, to answer the question based on what everybody criticizes, what would I do with the animation style? This. Now, I think the original style is so unique and has so much personality that I really do think it'd be a travesty to make it look like everything else that's out there. But I would need to make it a bit more palatable to a more general audience. I'm aware it has an uncanny valley quality to it, and it doesn't move very fluidly, it doesn't move naturally. The original inspiration was actually not Monty Python, according to co-creator herself, but it was this advertising campaign, Mr. Jenkins, which I think is really interesting looking. So I would probably keep some of the personality of that. I would make the colors a little brighter. I'd give the characters skin tones. And I also spoke to somebody who was in the art department of the original show, and he said that it was a 2D show that was animated with 3D software. He specifically said it was Houdini. Now, I would use South Park as a reference for this too, but I think that's a good way of going about it. Treating it like a 2D show that is animated with 3D software to give it more of this depth. With today's technology, with the use of Maya, we honestly could do that and make something look really, really nice. I would also modernize some of the designs a bit, but I'll get to that when I talk about character changes. I thought that would be an interesting way to go about it. find that balance of the personality of the original style, but the fluidity and the much more natural movement using today's technology. You know, I originally wasn't going to put this segment in there, but Batman Rules 1994 gave me a great idea in talking about the theme song and what I would do. Now, critics have said that the original doesn't reflect what the entire series is, and they're right. I think the original theme song melody is actually really, really nice. I'd probably jazz it up a bit. I'd take out the words, but I would focus on that really nice melody. I think taking out the words would really emphasize the visuals, so you can actually see what an episode of the show is like in that 30 seconds. Probably add a little more instrumentation in the middle. See what the composer comes up with. Let them get creative. And I would showcase Angela going up against her 3 major antagonists in the span of that time, starting with her older brothers, Miss Brinks, and finally Nanette, who really is the main antagonist of the show. And probably have a few of her friends and family, the people who are on her side, in between that. I would also end it with this. And now to today's story, starring me, Angela Anaconda. So that way it keeps the focus on her a bit more. And makes it clearer that this is a positive show. It's not just aimless hatred. Though we are keeping the revenge fantasies, that's for damn sure. Going into the characters, now I'm going to be talking about this mostly from a writing perspective, since I'd have to work with someone who's an artist in order to really get the designs down. I don't draw myself, my specialty really is as a writer, and I would have to see it in front of me to know whether or not a design choice works or not. But I still feel very strongly about the idea of designing and boarding it as if it's a 2D show, but animating it like it's a 3D show, given the nature of the style that it has. And I do want to change up some of the designs just a little bit. With that being said, talking about the characterizations, now, main character herself, Angela Anaconda, I would more or less keep her the same quippy, redundancy-speaking, imaginative person. But I like this 90s tomboy angst that she has, but I would soften the edge she has just a little bit so it's crystal clear to the audience that she's the sympathetic character. I see her, my own characterization of her would be somebody who has this very strong sense of integrity, a dark sense of humor. I would take that and run with it a bit more. And ultimately somebody who really has to fight for her place in the world. I could see her being the kind of person that her classmates might admire her, but nobody really knows what to make of her. I could see her being a bit intense for people. Almost kind of threatening. You don't really know if she's threatening or not, but then you get to know her and you think, oh, no, she's just this really passionate person, and she's gonna do her own thing. I also think it'd be really interesting to give Angela's relationship with her parents a little bit more depth, in that while they'd still be a very good, loving family, it wouldn't be abusive at all. But I could see, and she'd still enjoy helping her dad out with his inventions and her mom with her art. I could see them being the kind of parents who would not support her when she gets angry, even if it's justified. And they would not be aware that they're doing this, but they would try to make her into something she's not, which is positive all the time, which no sane person can do. I thought that'd be interesting to look at, because usually with animated shows, I see parents are either perfect or they're abusive. And you don't really see much nuance with that. So it'd be a really interesting look at that dynamic. Then I could see her getting her intensity from her mom, who wouldn't want her daughter to be the same way she is, so she'd be trying to, in her way, make sure she isn't. Whereas her dad would be much more even keel and not really know what the best route is. You know what I just thought of just now? If Sue Rose doesn't come back to do the voice, you know who'd be really, really good at it? Shelby Rabara from Steven Universe, the woman who voices Peridot.
7132. Progress on the cluster drill is going optimal.
I can see that. I can really see that working.
Aww, you're like an angry little slice of pie.
The character that I would probably change the most is Gina Lash. Now, she's one I'd want to redesign into something a little bit more modern. I'd still keep her fat, still keep her with glasses. I'd still keep her nerdy and awkward. I like that. But I'd probably modernize the design of the glasses, give her a more timeless hairstyle, and change the style of the dress just a bit. She'd still be Angela's voice of reason, character-wise. And she will not be just the fat girl into food stereotype. That I'm dropping. I could honestly see her thing being all things shiny and princessy. I could see her being into princesses and glitter. I'd also want to show more of her vulnerable side. Now, she is a bit too perfect in that she seems to have no problems in the original, from what I'm interpreting. So I'd want to showcase more of Gina Lash's vulnerable side. She would be... I could see her being insecure about herself, about her looks and about her awkwardness. Now, she wouldn't do it in a way that she's taking it out on others. She'd be more quiet about it, but it is there. And especially because what the original show gives us to work with is that she has an extremely attractive mother. And anybody who's had an extremely attractive family member, grown up with that, has to hear about it a lot. So I think that could be really, really interesting to go into, especially because Gina's not very sure about herself. She's not a confrontational person, so I could see her being a really good foil for Angela that way, while being the voice of reason. So they'd have a good friendship along those lines. I could see Angela having to defend her a bit. The other character I'd probably change, or at least add a little bit more to him, is Johnny Abatti. Now, he's not totally flat, but I find him the least interesting of that group. I could see him being the brawn of the gang. What I find interesting is that Johnny and Angela would be the strong personalities of the group, while Gina and Gordy would be more the shy, less confrontational, more introverted types. So I could see Johnny and Angela having a bit more of a rough and tumble friendship. He'd be impulsive, he'd be the brawn of the gang, a bit rougher. I could still see him being a little bit ditzy, maybe not to the degree he is, but I can still see that being part of his character. And I could see him still being very close with his family, still having that Italian pride. I do like that. And even though it is a bit stereotypical, mostly with the family, I don't think it's ever insulting. Plus, I knew people who were like that, so I don't think it's entirely inaccurate. Another thing with Johnny that I think could be really funny is I could see him liking girls and being a bit of a flirt, but in a way that moms would find adorable. He wouldn't be creepy about it. I could see... Because in the original show, what we get to work with is, even though he kind of hates... Even though he hates Nanette, and he's clearly on Angela's side, and he likes her too, he likes the attention that Nanette gives him. So that'd be fun to play with. And since he kind of has a thing for both Nanette and Angela, I could see him having a type. He likes strong personalities. He likes strong, intense women, because he's known as that way. That'd be interesting. I could give him a bit more to work with. Now, the friend that I like the most, in the original, I think Gordy Reinhardt is my favorite of that group. I do find him so funny. So I would keep him more or less the same, especially because he has such an interesting story. He is somebody who has very traditionally feminine interests, but nobody gives him shit for it, and he has a really good relationship with his very macho football coach father, which is some of the most heartwarming stuff in the show. I keep it more or less the same. I like the design. He's got a pretty timeless design. I've known plenty of people who looked like that. I like that he's shy, interested in more domestic activities. He's a bit of a sassy bitch, which I definitely want to play with a bit more, because I see it. It's in there. Gordy is a shady bitch. He is the most developed of the friends, but I would probably make his crush on Gina Lash cuter and a little less obsessive. Because I've watched enough episodes in a row and he mentions it quite a bit. I'd tone it down a bit. But keep my shady bitch. God, I love Gordy so much. I'm gushing. And getting towards the end of the character list, and finally, with Nanette Memoir, I would keep that design because I find it so interesting. There is so much you can get about that character by the way she's designed, especially because I do see an overabundance of blonde girls, especially in animation, but none that look like that. She has this very doll-like appearance, so you can get a lot about her from that alone. Now, I think it really helps to add to the fact that I think she is fake, so I'd play with that a bit more. I think characterization-wise, I think the only thing I would really do is make her a little funnier, but in a love-to-hate way, so people take a sadistic joy in the revenge fantasies where she gets pelted with coconuts and falls off a cliff, all that great stuff. She's Heather Chandler as a kid! That's the perfect way to describe her. I could see her getting a bit more of a quippiness, kind of like what Angela has, but in a funny, bitchy way. I could see her saying something like, you know it's sad, Angela Anaconda, that your dad's 40 years old and still aspiring? Or something like, I don't eat peasant food. Something like that would be so funny. And probably make her a bit more developed, I'd say. Now, she's an entitled, insecure bitch. I would definitely write her that she's insecure, but in the kind of person who takes it out on others, and she'd be jealous of Angela. Don't know how, we don't know why, but that's why she does it. I would write it with that characterization in mind. And unlike Angela, Nanette is willing to kiss ass and lie and suck up to get what she wants. Which is another reason Angela hates her so much. As for Miss Brinks, a final character on the list, I'd keep the ideas that she has. Now, she's a stuck-up, small-minded woman who likes being sucked up to, rumored weekend nudist. The only thing I'd really do with her is tone down the extent of her creepy attachment to Nanette. That's probably it. So I think that could give us a bit more specificity, solidify the characters' relationships, and really make it clear who these characters are, give them a bit more depth, and how they relate to each other. Just for fun, I thought I'd finish this video with what a potential episode would look like. It's a rough outline that I thought would be interesting. It is not glorified fan fiction, it is a Spec script. I called it Poster Child. Angela Anaconda watches high school baseball with her family to cheer on Mark and Derek, who are playing. Her dad made the family matching soda drink hats, and the parents made really sweet posters such as Yay and Go Team. Angela made one that said, Suck eggs, Mark and Derek. They insult her all the time, but they'll find this one hilarious. Her parents think it's too negative, but everyone else gets the irony and sees it for the hilarious brilliance that it is. Unfortunately, Nittywart, whose dad sponsors the team, sees it and decides to ruin the moment by cheerleading, purposely sending the hilarious poster of hilarity flying into the wind. Angela's about to retaliate and go after it, but her parents tell her to turn the other cheek and enjoy the game. Later, finding an excuse to leave, she tells her parents that she's going to use the bathroom. Her family tells her not to wander too far. So she thinks she sees the poster, but it turns out to just be toilet paper from the porta potties. She refuses to go any nearer on account of Mark and Derek tipped it over on her last game. Jerks. Thinking she sees her poster, she walks into an open door. Sadly, it is not her poster, it is just a flyer that got left behind. But looking around, seeing dirty urinals, dirty socks, and some very confusing graffiti, she realized she wound up in the boys' locker room. After trying some locked doors, she can't remember the right way out. And then she finds out Gordy Reinhardt's in the stall next to her. Turns out Gordy's dance class was held in the gym this week, and he's about to go to dinner with his dad after the game. But since dancers are bitches, someone hid his clothes somewhere in the locker room, which further reinforces his fear of unsanitary spaces. Angela agrees to find his clothes and asks for help if he'll find her poster, which he agrees to, as if he has a choice. She looks under the benches, in the toilet, and covered her eyes as she checks behind the shower curtains. Fortunately, there's no murderers or worse, weekend nudists behind it. She finds Gordy's clothes on top of the lockers, and she grabs them and they walk out together, ready to find the poster. But then she hears that Nanette's leading Angela's parents to her, who are looking for her. Nanette finds them and proceeds to mock her for going into the boys' locker room to spy on people. Angela tells her off, protesting her innocence. Angela's parents scold her for getting angry and proceed to make her wait in the car for the rest of the game. Cue revenge fantasy! Angela flies into Nanette like a kite, kind of like catching her in the wind the way she did to the poster earlier, but decides to let Nanette get hit by a lot of electricity instead. When she's had enough, she lets her fly away into a porta potty, which Angela then tapes up and shoves right off a cliff so she can go bother other people, go bother the sewer rats. After the revenge fantasy, Gordy Reinhardt finds Angela's poster right in the trash. Unfortunately, dirty and gross, but still legible. Mark and Derek come by, and she finally gets to show them. Of course they laugh because it's funny, and then that calms Mom and Dad down a bit, while they enjoy the rest of the game. Angela insists that Nanette can have the poster on account of she likes cheerleading so much. Nanny Poo touches the gross poster, and it does not know what the heck she touched. What the heck was on that thing? Angela laughs at her victory. That's probably what I would do. Maybe I'd make it a bit more sadistic. But that is ultimately a brief rundown of what I would do for the show. And I hope that comes to fruition someday.